Well, welcome back to Actionable Intelligence. I'm Eric Greitens. As you know, this is the show that brings you the perspectives that so often the mainstream media refuses to air, and the stories that the mainstream media so often refuse to air. Well, we thought we'd take a look at some of the stories that the mainstream media has been covering. This week, the New York Times published a piece titled, "Biden has a Peloton bike." That raises issues at the White House. The article reads, "A person close to the president-elect said that Mr. Biden and his wife, Jill Biden, engage in regular morning negotiations over who gets to ride first." Obviously, big breaking news there from the New York Times. Then, of course, there was an article from E! News Online titled, "All the Times Joe Biden's Love for Ice Cream Melted Our Hearts." Of course, I'd be remiss not to mention those journalists over at The Hill who wrote this story. The Biden-Harris team unveils an inauguration playlist. But it wasn't just the print media. There was CNN's political director last night. Take a listen to what he said about the Biden inauguration.
There's still some tinkering going on with the inaugural address, but his aides have made really clear it's not like he's trying to ignore or paper over either what happened at the Capitol 2 weeks ago or what we've been through throughout 4 years of the Trump presidency. And the contrast on display tonight was so stark. I mean, those lights that are just shooting out from the Lincoln Memorial along the reflecting pool, it's like almost extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America. It was a moment where the new president came to town and sort of convened the country in this moment of remembrance, outstretching his arms. And contrast that with that video you just saw of a disgraced president on his way out at his lowest point in his presidency at the very end here by himself, fighting for his political movement to live on.
So yeah, and that CNN claims to be objective, saying that those were extensions of Joe Biden's arms embracing America. It's certainly the type of objective journalism that we've come to expect from CNN. Of course, they aren't the only ones. Earlier this week, a top Biden official appeared on MSNBC to thank their network for their help and support. Take a listen.
Let me say one other thing before you let me go. There's been a lot of people pulling for this. Your help has been extremely important because not only have you continued to amplify some of the things that we're trying to do here, but you've been in the weeds and you've talked about the very policies that have been knocking around for a long time and that we've finally been able to get together and put into a plan. So I want to thank you for your advocacy as well.
Well, Jared, if you're going to compliment me, there's always more time for that in our show. We're going to continue to cover this. Do you know why? Because policy matters. That's how people's lives change.
Of course, that was MSNBC host Stephanie Ruhle. A lot of you have also commented that you saw the CBS Sunday Morning fawning interview with Kamala Harris and her husband. Of course, we know that the service of Mike Pence and his wife Karen received a much different reception by the mainstream media. Now, speaking of the mainstream media, as we mentioned earlier, many of them failed to cover the president's farewell address. In that address, he noted his many accomplishments. Now, the president, as many people know, served without pay for all 4 years in office. He came in as an outsider, and as any fair person would note, was attacked by the left and the political establishment from even before he was in office. As all of you will remember, the president was hounded for years by the fake Russia collusion hoax. And as you just heard from John Solomon, newly declassified documents published at justthenews.com now show Christopher Steele admitting that the motivation for the entire Russia collusion fake story, which hounded the Trump administration for years, was just to distract from Hillary Clinton's email scandal. Nevertheless, the left's perpetuation of the Russia collusion hoax led to years of negative media coverage, and many, including House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, led her to falsely claim that the 2016 election was hijacked. Well, today, Joe Biden takes office under a cloud. less than half of U.S. voters say that concerns and allegations of voter fraud were given appropriate attention in Congress. In fact, nearly 40% say that such concerns were simply swept under the rug. President Biden is also the first president, perhaps in American history, to be sworn in front of the Capitol, in front of the People's House, and to exclude American citizens from the ceremony. Today, over 25,000 troops locked down your Capitol. No American citizen who is not a special guest of the incoming administration was allowed to attend. Now, in his farewell address, President Trump said that he'll be praying for the success of the new administration to keep America safe and prosperous. He thanked America's service members and also law enforcement officers. And then the president focused on real achievements. He didn't talk about politics, but he focused on results, on things that he and his team delivered for the American people. That included slashing more job-killing regulations than any administration in American history. It included reducing taxes. And it also included fixing trade deals, including withdrawing from the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Paris Climate Accord, replacing NAFTA with the U.S., Mexico, and Canada trade deal. The Trump administration took a far harder line on China, imposing large tariffs, and the United States unlocked energy resources here at home and became the world's #1 producer of oil and natural gas. I remember back in 2005 when I was serving as a White House fellow, and then later went to serve in 2006 in Iraq, when people were talking about energy independence for the United States, and it seemed a far-off dream, but it has now been achieved. Before coronavirus, job creation in America was reignited, and the United States achieved record low unemployment. And that was record low unemployment for Americans across the political spectrum and in every conceivable geography and demographic, including African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, and women. On health care, the administration passed VA Choice for veterans, passed the VA Accountability Act. They also passed bipartisan landmark criminal justice reform. Of course, you remember that they put 3 new justices on the United States Supreme Court. And Space Force was launched, the first new branch of the U.S. Armed Forces in 75 years, since the Air Force broke off from the Army. The Trump administration, we should also remember, defeated ISIS, and they took a hard line against Iran, the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism, and they killed one of the world's top terrorists, Iranian butcher Qasem Soleimani. President Trump also took strong action in the Middle East. He recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. He recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and he initiated a series of historic peace deals in the Middle East that nobody believed could happen. The president noted that he was especially proud to be the first president in decades who started no new wars. And like George Washington did in his farewell address, or Dwight Eisenhower, who famously warned about the military-industrial complex, President Trump also warned America about what he saw as one of our great dangers. He said, "Only if we forget who we are and how we got here could we ever allow political censorship and blacklisting to take place in America." The president said that America is not a nation of tame and timid souls who need to be sheltered and protected from those with whom we disagree. He said that's not who we are. It will never be who we are. The president ended by saying that he was leaving with a loyal and joyful heart, an optimistic spirit, and a supreme confidence that for our country and our children, the best is yet to come. Now, that is certainly what I believe. I know that it is what many Americans believe. And for it to be true, it will be up to us as citizens to find ways to revive the republic.